You're listening to Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair. For more information, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at SBT Songs, or check us out at chrisblair.com. What's up, everybody? Chris Blair here, and we've got my buddy Keesy Timmer on this week's episode of Stories Behind the Songs podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. Really appreciate it. Keesy has had a really interesting path that has led him to Nashville and to playing many shows on our stage here at the Listening Room. Keesy has been writing with Kelsea Ballerini since she was just a teenager, like 17 years old. And they co-wrote the hit song, Yeah Boy, with Keesy, Kelsea, and Forest Glen Whitehead, who is also a great songwriter in himself and great producer. In this episode, Keesy shares how the song started from a funny moment with Kelsea and wound up earning a shout out from the one and only Taylor Swift herself. We also cover Keesy's recent cut with up-and-comer Zach John King, a song called Smoke on My Jacket, which has already garnered a couple 100,000 Spotify streams. That song's only been out a few months. As always, he also plays a couple songs, so you're gonna hear a little bit about Yeah Boy and Smoke on My Jacket. We also talk about being part of the band Telluride, the struggle of being a songwriter today, signing with the publishing companies that he's been with, and using his gift from music and songwriting to give back by volunteering with music therapists in prisons and through organizations like Operation Song, Redemption Song, and many more. He's just a great dude. I have written with him and just love where he comes from, always looking for a positive vibe in the room, and anywhere he goes, he brings that with him. I hope you enjoy this episode, and if you do, make sure to share it with your friends, give us a follow. It's because of you, our amazing listeners, that we're able to continue doing what we do and share the stories behind the songs with you every single week. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It was such a good time having my buddy Keesy on the podcast this week, so let's get into it. Here is Keesy Timmer. All right, well, thanks everybody for joining in. Keesy, how you doing, brother?
Man, I'm doing great. How are you this morning?
I'm good, man. Thanks for joining us here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun. We've known each other for a long time, and you've got some cool stories and cool songs to dive into.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, let's just jump in. I always like to start with just a little bit of a background of like how you got into music. So you grew up kind of around music. So walk us through that and what got you inspired at an early age, and then how you ended up in Nashville.
You got it, man. Well, it's a heck of a story. I mean, I come from a real musical family. My grandpa, my dad's dad, was a classical composer in the Netherlands in the 1920s, and he always dreamed about being a songwriter. And he went to his dad and asked his dad for his blessing to pursue his music, and his dad told him the dreams were for fools and that he was to go to school and he was to be a doctor. And so he kind of spent his whole life doing something that he didn't really want to do, because really what he was a songwriter and a classical pianist and a classical violinist and just an amazing musician. And that's really all he wanted to do. So I grew up, knowing that my grandfather was, this world-class musician. And my grandmother on my mom's side played the piano, and my dad plays the piano beautifully, and my sister played. And so I was just in this family of music. But since my papa was, this staunch, classical music guy, I was kind of required to play the violin. So I started playing the violin from when I was like 5 years old to when I was 12. And I was playing, classical music and, really serious compositions and stuff like that. And man, I just didn't like it.
Yeah.
I hated it. I mean, it wasn't something that I wanted to do. It was something that I kind of had to do. And
what was it, like the theory behind it, or like what was it that?
It was all of it. It was all of it. I mean, I just don't think it was ever something that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I was kind of, forced to take all these lessons. And my teacher was this really serious violinist who was the first chair in the Spokane Symphony. So she was legit, right?
Yeah.
And she was, real strict and, real serious teacher. And I remember I just got to a point to where I rebelled and I grew out my fingernails because I was, I was speaking out like, I don't want to do this anymore. and she forced me down in a chair and she cut my fingernails at my last.
Way.
Yeah. And I was like, kick in, and she's cutting my fingernails. And I think she realized what was happening. And that day she met my mom at the top of the stairs because we were down in this basement. It was like a dungeon, man. It was pretty serious stuff. And I was down there. Like it puts the lotion on the skin, man. You know? And I'm down there. And she meets my mom at the top of the stairs on my last lesson and was like, you know what? I don't think this is for Keesy. You need to find something that he wants to do. And my mom just looked at me and said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to play the guitar. And so I stopped taking violin lessons and I put my violin in the case and I like never picked it up again.
Yeah.
And then I started guitar lessons like the next week. And my mom got me the lessons with this local guy. And he was, you know, in bands and, you know, I think he was like a serious pothead and he would only show up like 25-30% of the time. So my mom would pick me up at school and take me to these lessons. And there was like a really good chance that this guy wasn't going to show up. And some days he'd come bombing into the parking lot like a half an hour after our lesson was supposed to start.
Oh, wow.
He'd come ripping through in his Dodge Caravan and he'd get out and he'd slam the door and his hair would all be disheveled. And he'd come in and be like, you guys won't believe what happened to me this time.
Wow.
So, I mean, needless to say, I didn't really learn a lot from that guy. And I took lessons from him for a whole year. And then that summer, I went to a 4-H camp over in Morrow, Oregon,
Okay.
which is close from where my family's from in Washington State. And my camp counselor was this guy by the name of John Rolfe. And John was a great guy. He was a great singer-songwriter or great singer. And he had won the Colgate Country Showdown around that time. He got to come to Nashville and record a song. And that was a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And so he had a guitar and a chord book with him in his cabin. And he taught me how to play and sing that week. Like he showed me where the chords were. And he's like, you see those lines? Those are strings. You see those dots? Those are where your fingers go. And when it gets to this lyric, you change from this chord to this chord. And just broke it down for me, man. And that week, I literally learned how to play guitar. And it was the first time that I'd ever gotten to see the words written by on a piece of sheet music.
Yeah.
And words and music written by. And I was seeing these names for the first time, you know, like Kent Blasey and Kim Williams and, you know, Skip Ewing, Max T. Barnes and all these, you know, brilliant songwriters that I never even knew existed. And I just remember one night when I was laying in my bunk, there was this kid up in the bunk above me and he was doing something. And I was like, hey man, what are you doing up there? He goes, I'm writing a song. I go, you're writing a song? He says, yeah, I'm going to be a songwriter in Nashville. And that was the first time I ever heard the word Nashville. And from there on out, man, I was going to be a singer in Nashville.
Yeah.
And that's where the seed got planted. That summer, I taught myself how to play like 30 or 40 of my favorite country songs because I was really into 90s country.
Yeah.
You know, this is around 93, 94. You know, so it was all like Tracy Lawrence and George Strait and Garth Brooks, Doug Stone, guys like that. And I mean, I just fell in love with it. And the fire just got lit. I didn't start actually writing, writing songs until I was about 16.
Okay.
But my school had a little guitar program that was going on. And me and a couple of my buddies, Dan and Dave, had already been playing guitar for a few years at this point. And we were, you know, pretty good. And we were way better than our guitar teacher. And so, so we'd go in and our teacher would, you know, take roll and he'd say, all right, Dan, Dave, Keesy, head off into my office. And we'd go back into his office and we'd write songs. And that's when we started co-writing. And we had no idea.
And how old were you at this point?
16.
Okay, yeah.
So we had absolutely no idea what the concept of co-writing was.
Yeah.
But we were doing it. And we were doing it for real, man. We were calling each other at night and pitching ideas, going over to each other's houses and, you know, and working songs and tweaking lines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, we were really serious about it, but we had really no idea what we were doing. And that's kind of when I knew that was what I wanted to do. And from, pretty much then on, all I ever wanted to be was a songwriter in Nashville.
Hmm.
So that's where it started.
I love it, man.
Yeah, man.
And then, so when did you move to Nashville?
Oh my gosh. I graduated in 2000.
Yep.
And I eventually had the opportunity to move to Nashville in 2004. I feel like I lived a whole life between 2000 and 2004.
Celebrating 20 years this year.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
this will
man.
be 20 years for me, which is really crazy to think.
Yeah.
But it's awesome. It's been a blessing.
Yeah. I moved here in 2003, so we've been here about the same time.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. Just watch
so
the city.
your career is almost drinking age.
Yeah. 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 I'm finally legal.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So you get here and then what do you do? Like, do you start, go out and you're playing writers rounds because you've already started to write these songs? Like, how did you find your camp?
It was weird. It was weird because it didn't happen like that right off of the bat. But a few months in, after I'd been living here a couple of months, I got hooked up with my Washington State crew.
Yep.
And I was buddies with a guy by the name of Les Richardson, who was from Washington State. And I grew up, Les was, a singer-songwriter in the Southern Washington area for a long time. And I got to see him open up for guys like Chris Ledoux and I caught him in a Doug Supernaw concert and stuff. But like he was doing it on a pretty big level. And from when I was a kid, I always really looked up to Les and really admired him a lot. And he, inspired me. And after I moved to Nashville, him and I became friends and we started hanging out and playing a little music together and stuff. We just, more than anything, we just became friends.
Yeah.
And we were hanging out with a bunch of people from Washington. And I got introduced to a guy by the name of Adam Craig.
Oh, yeah.
Adam and I moved to Nashville right about the same time. It's like a couple weeks apart. And he'd been in Nashville for a few months. I've been in Nashville for a few months. But he was writing with this guy named Michael Howard. Michael had a publishing deal. It was, I'm trying to think of the name of the company. People are going to kill me. I'll think of it in a second. But Ash Street Music Publishing was the name of the company that he was working for at the time.
Okay.
And he brought Adam and I under his wing, and we'd go and we'd write songs with Michael all the time. And Michael is an incredible songwriter, and he's just so good at his craft.
Yeah.
And knew what he was doing. And he was, helping us cut our teeth, on the Nashville thing, which was a major blessing. And that's where we met Josh Thompson. So Josh Thompson and Adam and Michael and I started writing together, pretty much exclusively for the first 6 months that I was really in Nashville. And we were writing, 3, 4, 5 days a week. And it was me and Michael and Josh and Adam. And we were, doing the thing, man.
Yeah.
And that's really where I got my crash course in co-writing and what Nashville songwriting was about. But from where, my songs were when I got here to where they started to go, the first year I was there, it was just, a night and day difference. Like
yeah.
It was really starting to come together.
Yeah. I want to dive into Kelsea Ballerini in just a little bit. But before we get there, talk a little bit about Telluride.
Oh, yeah, Telluride. So Adam was in a band called Dixie Twister. And they were a 3-man band or a 3-man front band. And so there were 3 singers and then, the rest of the band. And one of the singers was leaving the band, and they decided that they, wanted to find another singer, and they wanted to do a name change and call it something else. And so Dixie Twister became Telluride, and I joined the band as one of the front guys with Adam and a guy by the name of Kane Hall.
Yeah.
And so the 3 of us, were, kind of the singers in the band Telluride. And Telluride signed an independent record deal back in like 2006 with an independent label called Roots, American Roots Records. And we were doing a lot of touring, doing a lot of the college circuit stuff. and, playing our tails off. And, through that process, one of the first gigs that I ever did, we did a 3-night show in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina at a place called Cowboys, which is funny because my nickname's always been, Cowboy growing up.
Yeah.
So playing at this place called Cowboys is where I got to meet my wife for the first time. And so, my life, like I was only in that band for really a hot minute because, some things happened while we were out there. I had some health struggles and it unfortunately, led me to having to leave the band.
Yeah.
And through that process, I met my wife. And it's just one of the greatest things the greatest thing that ever happened to me.
Let's go.
So
yeah,
coming to Nashville, joining a band, and then meeting the woman that I was going to spend the rest of my life with.
Yeah.
Worth it.
Worth it. Yeah. And you guys have almost 2 years old now.
Yeah. We have a little boy named Elmer, and he's just the cat's meow, man. He's awesome. He's the man.
Love it, dude.
Such a cool kid.
Yeah. Well, all right. So, stories behind the songs. Let's start to dive into it. We've had the opportunity to write together, and you're just a brilliant writer. So I want to go back and take me into the moment that you met Kelsea Ballerini for the first time.
Awesome. I'm really good friends with a girl by the name of Jen Denmark. Okay. And back then she was Jen Zuffanetti.
Yep.
But my friend Jen Denmark has been one of my main co-writers and one of my favorite co-writers that I've had since I've been in Nashville. And her and I have been writing songs since around 2008, 2009, somewhere in there. Our paths crossed, and they have been writing ever since. And Jen's amazing. She had a publishing deal at a company called Big Tractor at the time. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a deal or anything like that, but she didn't care. She just loved the songs that we were writing. And she would always bring these artists in, to work with us. And she brought some incredible artists in. She brought in Michael Ray. She brought in Carly Pierce. And she brought in this girl named Kelsea Ballerini. And Kelsea was 17, I think, when I first met her. Mm-hmm. And she'd been working with Jen for a little bit. And Kelsea and Jen and I wrote a song. I think it was called Not Every Cloud Brings Rain, which eventually got cut by somebody. But it was a fun time, and she was just such a cool girl. And I remember a little while after that, she called us back and was like, hey, guys, I really loved writing with you. I'd love to do it again. And so we got together and we wrote some more songs. And then she got her first publishing deal, and she called us back, and she was like, hey, guys, I've always loved the songs that we wrote. I'd love to get back together with you and write some more songs. And so we got back together and we wrote some more songs. And then she signed her record deal, and she called me up and she said, hey, Keesy, I really love writing songs with you, and I want to bring you in to work with me and my producer, Forest Whitehead.
Yeah.
And I knew Forrest a little, but I hadn't had a chance to work with him yet. And so we went in, and Forrest had a studio set up over at Black River. And I'll never forget it. I remember this entire day. And it was like I knew that something really special was going to happen that day. But I didn't know that it was going to be this. But I remember that there was a lot of construction that was going on outside the window. And there was like this guy jackhammering. And it was just one guy, in his jackhammer. I remember it was raining, and dude's out there, jackhammering. And we're in there and we're listening to songs and stuff. And that's the first time that I ever got to hear the song Love Me Like You Mean It.
Yeah.
They just got the mix back on it, and they were like, hey, let's play this for you, show you, kind of where we're going on the record. And it was Love Me Like You Mean It. And I remember thinking to myself, whoa, this is going to be freaking huge. And we were talking, and I said something to Kelsea that made her laugh. And Kelsea just goes, yeah, boy. And I started laughing. I'm like, that's so funny. And she stepped out of the room for a second. She had to take a call or something. She's blowing up at the time.
Yeah.
And she come back in the room, and I go, hey, we should do something with that. We should write Yeah Boy. And I had a little thing on guitar that I was kind of working with. And we did. And man, Forrest was building the track as we were going along. And it was just awesome, man. It was so fast. Like right off the bat, Kelsea just says, capture my attention, make my heart stop and listen. When you look my way. And then I go, blue jeans and a ball cap, thinking that you're all that, and I'm thinking the same. She's like, oh, I mean, it happens
just
so
poured
fast.
out.
Yeah, it was fast.
How long do you think from like when she walked into the room and you said, hey, we should write that? How long did that write take?
I'd say about an hour and a half or 2 hours.
Wow. Okay.
So it happened really fast, and we did the work tape. At one point, I said, hey, hand me that Ganjo over there. And I started doing this little lick on the Ganjo that ended up making it in the track.
Nice.
You know, and it was just cool. And the funny thing is that the whole time that we're writing this song, the guy outside the window was, you know, with his jackhammer. And
so do you have that on the work tape?
I do. Yeah. You can
Yes.
totally hear it on the work tape. It's going the whole time. And they put like parts of that kind of in the track. Like there was like, you know, they kind of pulled from that a little bit, but it was really cool.
That's sweet. You got to send that to me, man. We'll have to like play a little bit of that with the jackhammer in it.
Yeah. Oh, dude,
hilarious.
for sure. I got it.
Okay, cool.
You
Yeah.
can hear it.
I love it. So then what happens after that? Like you guys, like you knew that day, like, hey, this is a pretty magical song.
Yeah. Well, Kelsey took a video of it and posted it to her Instagram page and to her Facebook page. And it was just us in the room like, oh, you know.
Yeah.
Because it was a good time. We were having a lot of fun. And then that night she went and played it at the Bluebird. And I guess she got a great response from it. And she took it into her label the next day and said, hey, I want to put this on my EP. And so it made the EP. And then a girl by the name of Taylor Swift.
Yeah, that's what I wanted.
Yeah. A girl by the name of Taylor Swift gets a hold of it and tweets out, driving around New York with the lovely Kelsea Ballerini on repeat and hashtag yeah boy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it started. Yeah.
Take off. Yeah.
Big deal.
Yeah. That's amazing. You want to play a little bit of it for us?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Hey-oh. Look out. Raise it up a little bit here. Capture my attention, make my heart stop and listen when you look my way. I'm blue jeans and a ball cap, thinking that you're all that, and I'm thinking the same. Girl, you got that something in your eyes. I think about it all the time. If you ever wonder if I want to make you mine, yeah, boy, I'm digging what you're doing, yeah, boy. Girl, I'm trying to keep it cool, but you're making it hard. I'm wishing your arms were wrapping me up tight. Yeah, boy, you're shining, you can't even help it. Yeah, boy, your eyes can make the moon jealous. And if you wanna know, I wanna be yours tonight. Yeah, boy.
Yeah, dude.
Man.
Such a great song.
This episode is brought to you by Brit Skin Beauty. Located in the beautiful Indulgence Medi Spa in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, Brittany is the go-to esthetician for facials, dermaplaning, microdermabrasion, waxing, lashes, and any skincare products and consultations. So many people in the music industry use her frequently, and her work speaks for itself. To schedule your next consultation or make an appointment, visit britskinbeauty.com or send an email to britskinbeauty@gmail.com.
Man, so did you have a pub deal at that time?
I did.
Okay.
I did have a pub deal at that time. But unfortunately, it wasn't going well.
Yeah.
And I did have a pub deal at that time, but unfortunately, it wasn't really going all that well. And I just got to a point to where I knew that it was probably time for me to move on.
Okay.
And so I had this Kelsea thing that was happening. It was on the record, but it hadn't singled yet.
Yeah.
And I really didn't know what was going to happen with it. Taylor had blown it up again, over Twitter. They were at a Madison Square, they were at a concert at Madison Square Gardens, and a guitar pool broke out backstage. And Taylor had requested Kelsea play Yeah Boy. And she sang harmony through the whole thing and then tweeted out a petition to make it her next single. Well, it didn't become her next single. It became her fourth single. But in that time, like I was just exiting the deal that I was in, and I was trying to find another deal. And man, I'll tell you, it was a struggle. It's just was something that I don't know why it was so difficult for me to land my next publishing deal. I think there were a lot of factors that were involved.
Yeah.
But it took me 2 years from when I left my first publisher to when I found my next publishing deal. And in between that time, I had a hit. And even with a hit on the radio, man, I tell you what, I couldn't get arrested. I mean, I was having a hell of a time, finding a home, and I was trying, and I might have been trying too hard. I don't really know. I think, there were some things that, were happening around that time. I was working really hard just to make ends meet, so I was Ubering a lot, and I was writing when I could, and just trying to juggle all these things. And I think that my focus really needed to primarily be just, working on my songs and getting the best group of songs together that I could, to go into my next deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, a lot of people don't realize the struggle.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, a lot of people out there, probably not the people that are listening to this podcast, because they obviously know there's a songwriter and they're here because they want to know the story behind the song.
That's right.
But out there in quote unquote radio land, people hear these songs. A lot of times they don't even know what a songwriter is. Like going back to like the first time you're at camp and
That's
going,
right.
what? Like, what is this written by?
Yeah.
And
just kind of think that the artist, the artist wrote it,
Yeah. But yeah, like it's, even if they do realize, like, like realizing the struggle of like, what it takes to do this as a profession and
Absolutely.
Go into a room every day, what a publishing deal even means. And then when it goes to radio, like, especially now in the struggle that we're in, like how the songwriters get paid, which is they basically don't.
Totally different.
So yeah.
Totally different business model these days.
Yeah. It's tough, man. So, and I think probably, cause I know the time that you were going through that, like that's when a lot of this stuff was starting to really get hard with Spotify and everything else. And like the money wasn't there like it used to be.
That's right.
And publishers still, even today, aren't signing the way that they used to.
That's right.
So,
well, it's so much harder for them to make their money back.
Right. Yeah.
The mechanicals have changed on it,
Yeah.
I mean, where people used to pay 9 cents, get paid 9 cents for every record that was sold. Now you get paid, 0.000,
Yeah.
1 cent for every time it's streamed or something like that. It's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I appreciate guys like Bart over at NSAI and, just everybody that champions for the songwriters. But I think it's, it's important to talk about, especially on a podcast like this, so that people out there listening understand that, like Apple Music pays better, and just, all the things. So like, everybody out there listening,
Spotify's like the worst.
Yeah. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
they don't care about the songwriters, man. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. So, anyway, I'll get off my tangent, but, it just, so many friends that I see struggle with this, and it's, you got hit songs and you're still, driving Ubers to, to make ends meet, during those times. But
that's right.
So, but you land your next deal, and, what happened after that?
Well, I ended up over at a company called Average Joe's, which is a great label. Great label. And I was the only songwriter that they had signed to their publishing company. They had signed, other artists and stuff that were on the label to publishing deals, but I was the only straight up songwriter that they'd ever signed at that point. And so I went on, and man, it was great. I spent 2 years over there. That's when you and I got together and wrote a song with AJ and Jason.
Yep.
And that was during that time. That was during that publishing deal. And just like a lot of great songs went down.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember just the how kind they were, and what a great environment that they put together for, their artists and their songwriters and stuff. They give you try to give you as much creativity as possible to be able to do your thing the best you can.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I loved the most about Average Joe's is, the environment that they had. And they had all these like games set up and, you could go in and you could play, Pac-Man or Burger Time
Yeah.
or, whatever you wanted, and it was just so fun. They had ping pong machines or pinball machines and all that stuff. I mean, it was just like a fun zone that was over there. And so it always created such a great environment for writing songs in because you were able to be yourself and able to have fun.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately COVID happened.
Yeah.
And they didn't know they were in real time. And so they didn't know what the future was going to look like for, recording artists and for touring and stuff like that. And since their, a lot of their income was based on their touring acts, they didn't know what that looked like, So in like April of 2020, I found out that I wasn't, getting re-signed at Average Joe's. And it was an odd day because I had been told on a Friday by my publisher that, they were picking up my contract or that she wanted to pick up my contract. And then, so I went through the weekend because I'd been thinking about it. I knew it was up and I knew that I was, either going to have to find a new deal or I was going to have have another year or whatever. And so I remember I went through sailed through that whole weekend, feeling really good. And I had set my studio up in my guest bedroom where my son's nursery is now.
Yeah.
And I had like my little computer set up and had my speakers and everything. And I had just gotten it to where I was going to start kind of working out of this room. And it was Monday morning and I had positive music playing. I was listening to The Rest Is Still Unwritten, And so it gets to that part where it's like, let the sun illuminate your windows, reach for something,
Yeah.
And I go and it's just fling open, open up the windows, and I took the curtains and I opened them up and it goes reaching for something in the distance, and then all of a sudden my phone rings and I'm like, oh, it's my publisher. So I answer and I'm like, good morning. And she's like, yeah, I'm sorry. We're not going to be able to pick up your deal. So right in that moment, I went from like reaching for something to,
Yeah.
and that happened to be the day that I had to go do my taxes. And so my wife and I go from that to going to having to do our taxes. And we do our taxes and we're standing in the driveway and I'm talking to my neighbor, Tim, telling him about how I just lost my job. And my wife hands me my phone and she says, look at this. And that's when I found out that it had just gone platinum.
Same day.
So I lost my deal and I got a platinum song all the same day.
Yeah. Man.
So it was wild.
Yeah. Wild ride.
Yeah.
Welcome to the music business, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Great job if you can get it.
Takes a crazy person to keep doing this, but we're glad.
Yeah. It's a beautiful life, man.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Let's talk a little bit about Smoke on My Jacket.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Such a cool story. Like just writing to that specific thing. So take me into that one.
Man, that was a good day. That was the first time that I ever got to write with Zach. It was Zach, John King, and Adam Wheeler. We're the writers on that song. And they came over to my publishing company. I just signed over at Mucho Love. And that's where I am now. I'm at Mucho Love Publishing. And so they came over to the house to write. And I remember this title got thrown out and we all liked it. We all, how a title just kind of pops out at you sometimes. Yeah. Like, how could we make that cool? Like, one of the coolest things about writing a song is getting the senses going, so you can smell it, so you can touch it, so you can see it, so you can feel it. So we just started building on that idea. And there was a part in the song where we wanted to talk about the Carhartt jacket. We almost wanted to personify the jacket, give the jacket its own life, And so it was really cool, man. It was a fun song. And got to the bridge and I just spat out oh, I could take it to the Goodwill or I could, I could wash it. I could drop it off at the Goodwill, but I never will, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, let's go.
Yeah.
So it was a fun song. I remember that we all left the room that day feeling like that we did something really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Such a great song. You want to play a little bit of that one?
Heck yeah, man.
Let's do it, man. This one's also got like, talking about streaming.
Yeah,
this
this
got
one's
like
streaming
over
really
2 million streams or something like that.
Yeah, which is really good considering that it hasn't been out very long.
Yeah.
You know, so it's streaming really well, and Zach is crushing it. He's starting to blow up, so it's a cool song to be on, man.
Yeah.
Well, it was just a Friday night. It was just some friends of mine burning up them Georgia pines, lighting up the dark. Well, somehow that word got round like it does this way down south. You had me soon as you got out of your sister's car. Yeah, and that was just the start of the kind of night that lays in your mind and no way to get over. You and I close to the fire with your head on my shoulder. And every time I put it on, I wish we would have lasted longer than the smoke, longer than the smoke on my jacket. Smoke on my jacket.
Such a cool way to say that, man.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, we just wanted to see the whole thing going down.
Yeah, I love it. Talk a little bit about your creative process in the room. Like, you know, like it's just, again, like I enjoyed when we wrote with AJ so much because it's just like the same kind of thing, like just all the senses and all of that. But like where do you thrive in the room writing songs?
Oh man, well, I try to bring as much positive energy to every room that I'm in that I can.
Yeah.
I feel so strongly about vibe and how important the vibe is in a song. Like, I think that vibe is one of, if not the most important ingredients in a song is a good vibe and good energy. And I feel like if you set the vibe right and you have the right energy, man, there is absolutely nowhere that you can't go and nothing that you can't do. And I feel like the more fun you can have in a writing session, the better the song is going to be, just because you're loose and you're having fun. And I feel like the more open I am, the more comfortable I am, the more I allow the creativity to just kind of flow through me.
Mm-hmm.
And it works the other way too. It's like the more uncomfortable I am, more closed up I am.
Sure.
And man, it's sometimes hard to get a drop of creativity out when I'm tense, when I'm closed, when I'm uncomfortable. So I really try to be as comfortable in every room that I'm in and to promote the most positive energy that I possibly can. Because I feel like if I can be myself, which is a complete idiot, like I am a complete idiot most days, and kind of off my rocker a lot of times, But if I'm able to be myself, then maybe you're going to be able to be yourself. And if we're all able to be comfortable and be ourselves and be free, then maybe we can do something cool.
Man, that's so good.
Yeah.
What do you have a routine that you go to, or you do to like get to that comfortable place? Like, is it writing with the same kind of camp? I mean, you're writing with some guys that you really looked up to when you first started out. And now they're like Jeffrey Steele and guys like that.
I've been really fortunate to get to write with some of my heroes.
Yeah.
And what I've found about those guys is that they're just cool, man.
Yeah.
They are so cool. And there's no ego involved. No, they're so easy and fun, and they're themselves. And that just makes me feel so comfortable, and when you're in a room with a guy like Jeff, you could be so intimidated, but Jeff isn't an intimidating guy. Jeff is like the coolest guy in the world. And so you just feel like you can be yourself around him, and you can't.
Yeah.
And that's when you can do something, Yeah. But to answer your question, I feel like a long time ago, I made a conscious decision to give myself permission to be myself in the writing room. And a writing room can be anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
This can be our writing room. It can be at a badass studio or a really awesome publishing company, or it can be in a room that's got no pictures in it, no, nothing, it could be in a closet. I write in prisons. I write, your writing room can be anywhere, right? But if it's a writing room, I've given myself permission to be myself and to be comfortable. And it's like a switch almost gets flipped to where I'm immediately my authentic self when I'm in a room, I feel like it's so important, because if I can't be myself, then you're not going to get the best of what I got.
Yeah.
I
love that you put it like I decided a long time ago to give myself permission.
Yeah.
It's so good, because I think so many people can go into the room. I mean, the day that we wrote together, I knew you, knew of you, but we had never written together, and like I didn't know you well.
Yeah.
And going into that, like it just felt so comfortable. And we had a blast that day.
Jason Duke, though.
Duke was like,
Jason's the same way.
Jason, AJ, and I had written that morning over at Sony.
Wow.
And we had finished up, and I was leaving, and they had the right with you. And we're like, hey man, we had so much fun with this one that you want to jump in. And I almost left, and I'm so glad I didn't, because like AJ ended up cutting that song, and it was great. But yeah, like you, like as you were talking about it, like I could picture exactly what you were saying, because it's exactly how I felt that day, sitting across from you in that room with Duke sitting in front of his keyboard, and just all of that. It was so comfortable.
Yeah. Well, I think that honestly is the best program that you can have walking into a write. Like I feel like when you're writing a song, you don't know what's going to happen with the song.
Yeah.
Like we write so many songs, and the reality of it is that very few of them kind of make it out into the world. And so like if you write a song, even if it's a great song, there's a chance that nobody's going to hear it.
Yeah.
But man, if you have a great day, if you make it as much about the experience or more about the experience than it is about writing the song, then at least you got a great day out of it.
Yeah.
And you're enjoying the time that you have. And I feel like it's just so important.
Yeah.
I mean, what we're up against is so hard anyways, and it's such an uphill battle. Man, we might as well have fun when we're creating these things,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you think about the literal hundreds of songs that are written every single day in this town, and why not have fun with it?
Why not?
So, yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
And then the chances of that song going out to do something, I think, is even better, because then there's an experience attached to it. And when the artist looks back on it, they think about what a great freaking time they had.
Yeah.
What a blast it was, and they want to sing it every night.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. All right. I want to get some advice from you, because you've gone through a lot and all that. But before we move on, I've never heard this story, and you dropped a little nugget there that I've got to dive into. When you were talking about writers' rooms, writing in a prison?
Yeah.
Dude, what is that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, one of the cooler things that I've got to do, like, is I'm a big believer in volunteering.
Yeah.
Like when you're a Tennessean, man, you're living in the volunteer state, bro. And you gotta jump in and get your hands dirty sometimes. And there was a point where I really started to get into fall in love with volunteering. And I did a lot of music therapy with Special Olympics. We did a choir, Special Olympics choir called the Music City Miracle Choir, to where, we go in and sing songs with special needs kids every week. We do concerts and all that stuff. And you could just see how much it helped them. And so then I got approached by my friend Jen Dominelli, who runs an organization called The Beat of Life. And The Beat of Life has a program called Redemption Songs. And that's where you go into correctional facilities and you write with actual inmates,
dude,
that are going through, and they're rehabilitating, and just the music therapy and the stuff that goes along. I do a lot of work with vets, to where, I'm working with creative vets, and I'm working with Operation Song, and there's a lot of really great work that can be done through just the act of writing a song, And so, going into writing in prison, I've written with a lot of people, and I've written with some, pretty colorful characters, And there was this one guy that I wrote with one time in prison, and his name was Josh. And Josh was really cool. He was, I think, 38 at the time. And I think he had spent like 25 of his 38 years, something like that, in and out of the system.
Wow.
And if you were going from a book in the cover situation, the guy looked like a pretty rough dude, a lot of face tattoos and a lot of stuff like that. But in his heart and underneath the surface, man, he was a sweet guy. And I'll never forget what he was talking when he started talking, and he was like, man, nobody ever gave me a chance. It's the very first thing that he said to me. He says, nobody ever gave me a chance. He says, I was always told that you're going to be a piece of crap, just like your uncle. And guess what? I'm a piece of crap, just like my uncle. He's like, nobody ever told me anything but that I was no good, and that I wasn't going anywhere, and that I was going to be in jail. He says, and guess what? They were right. And I remember thinking to myself, like, holy crap, that could have been me, Like, I had the complete opposite experience. Like, I was only told that I was only given love and encouragement and told that you can do anything you want. You can be anything you want to be. There's nothing that you can't do. Go out and get it, Keesy, and just given nothing but love. And I thought, man, what if the shoe was on the other foot? And what if he was the one that was given all the love and all the encouragement, and I was the one that was told that I was no good and that I was never going to be anything? Maybe I'd be in there writing with him,
man.
So it's stuff like that. But yeah, I've written in jails. I've written you just never know where you're going to find yourself, man.
Thank you for sharing that. That's so good. I knew about everything you've done on the vet side, and those nonprofits they're great organizations, but man, that's really cool. And I bet you have heard some stories.
I have.
Yeah.
I have.
Man.
I have. And I try I try to pay really close attention, and I try to not take for granted the fact that I get to hear those stories.
Yeah.
I mean, I was with Operation Song. I got to work with a World War II vet last month, a guy by the name of Augie. Augie was 102 years old.
Wow.
And he fought in World War II, and he fought in Korea. He was a captain of a Navy boat that got sunk, and lost a lot of his crew to shark attack, and getting to hear his story. And not all of it was war, just a little bit of it was war, and then everything else was just the story of his life. And I just remember thinking to myself, how lucky are you, dude, that you get to sit here and listen to this incredible story from this man.
Yeah.
Like how many people get to hear something like that? I felt so fortunate to get to hear it, and then to get to write a song about it.
Yeah.
It meant a lot to me.
Yeah. Man, that's so cool. I was supposed to go to Normandy just a couple months ago for the for the
D-Day,
big anniversary. Man. I had some I didn't get to make it, but I had some friends that went, and similar stories, just sitting down with just people that, and hearing their stories, and they're walking around in Normandy, where all this where they were all these years before, man, it's just crazy.
It's huge.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. I love it.
Well, I know you've got to get to a write today. So as we start to wrap up, share a little bit about like just people that are listening, first moving to town, or maybe they haven't even moved yet. What kind of advice would you give a young songwriter or an aspiring artist as they're wanting to move and do this for a living?
Well, if they're here and they're passionate about what they're doing, and they believe that this is what they're meant to do, and that this is where they need to be, and I say, give them hell. I say, go out and get it, and build your crew, and learn your craft, be dedicated, Don't give up. If it's what you're meant to do, it's going to happen. If it's not, man, go do something else because this is hard.
Yeah.
But find your crew. Like, I was so lucky because I had guys like, I mean, I've been cutting my teeth and writing songs with guys like Matt Rogers.
Yeah.
You know, I've been writing with Matt Rogers for 18 years and Adam Craig, you know, and Jason Duke came into my life, you know, almost 10 years ago, you know, and he's a part of my crew, you know, and once you find somebody that you admire, that you appreciate, that you get along with, that you can be yourself around, that you create well with, man, cherish that.
Yeah.
Cherish that. Take that, treat that friendship like it's gold, because you have absolutely no idea what the future holds and where that friendship is going to take you, where that relationship is going to take you. 20 years later, I'm still writing with Adam Craig and Matt Rogers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you never know. Don't take your opportunities for granted. Make sure when you go in to meet with a publisher or when you're pitching songs, be honest with yourself. And go in with your best songs.
Yeah.
If you got two songs that you can hang your hat on, go in with those 2 songs, you know, and just that best represent who you are. And I'd also say, figure out what you do. Figure out what it is that makes what you do special, and just do it to the best of your ability, and go out and get it, man.
Yeah. What about advice for yourself?
Me?
If we could go back to 8-year-old Keesy, everything you've been through, what advice do you give yourself today?
Well, it's funny because I was talking to my buddy Will the other day, Will Nance, and I was talking about the violin. One thing I would say, man, you don't have to completely stop playing the violin. You just don't
let your fingers grow out.
Don't put it in its case forever.
Man, I taught myself how to play a really hard song on violin, so I can play one song on violin.
That's awesome.
It's bop, ba da da. I learned the intro to Dave Matthews because I wanted to play. Yeah. I was like, well, that's 2 notes. I can figure that part out. And it still sounded like crap, but hey. Oh, dude, it's been a blast sitting down with you, man.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me, dude.
And I'm glad that Kelsey came in and said,
"Oh gosh,
yeah,
dude.
boy,
yeah, man, yeah." It's so funny because had that day had not happened and had that song not have happened, man, it's hard to say what I'd be doing right now. In a lot of ways, that song saved my career.
Yeah,
you know, it's just been such a blessing.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, keep doing what you do, brother.
Thank you, man.
I love it. Everybody out there, thanks for tuning in. You've been listening to another episode of Stories Behind the Songs with Keesy Timmer, and we will see you next time. Thank you for listening to another episode of Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair. Make sure to give us a follow on Spotify if you enjoyed this episode, and make sure you click that notification button so you can keep notified when new episodes come out. We release brand new episodes every Tuesday, and you can find us on YouTube at Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to send us a comment letting us know what you thought of the episodes. We love getting your feedback, and share this with your friends. The more we grow, the more that we can keep doing this. It's our mission to bring you all of these great stories behind the songs from some of Nashville's most iconic artists and songwriters, publishers, producers, everyone in between, and a lot of my great friends. We love what we do, and we love sharing their stories with you. We appreciate all of the continued support. Thanks also to all of our sponsors, and we will see you all next week.